11 years old. I started a little dog walking thing, shoveled a lot of driveways, spinning vinyls and DJing throughout Waterloo. Actually, one of my first mentors at SAP reached out to me and asked me to join his company. It's one thing to have a thesis, it's another thing to actually put it into practice. I was ready to take another step down this entrepreneurial path and join another company. Blockchain was just really becoming an industry at this time. I had an awesome company in Brooklyn called Block Apps. You can set up a blockchain between that consortium of people and manage it and run it. So it's not a public blockchain like an Ethereum or an EOS, the ability to immutably update data. And this is where blockchain tech is really useful, where you have different parties, they don't necessarily trust each other 100%, and that process for a lot of these cases are things like pen and paper management. The benefit is the immutability of how data comes into a system. You can't change it, and a person can't really make it seem like it's beneficial to them. You educate developers enough, you start feeling like you can really take some of the work on yourself. How to build front-end applications, how to build databases. It took about 3 months to really become fully proficient for a full stack. And I remember shaking a little bit, being like, damn, am I really gonna quit my job and start something myself? Show people ways that they can buy into those apartment buildings with tokens. Really grateful for the team that has built up around me. We're bootstrapped right now. Block Geeks right now, they're already on our platform. EOS Nation is another block producer for the EOS blockchain that's on our platform. They come to us and they say, hey, we have this education need. We want to get our community off of Telegram, a Spotify management process for how they do distributions of money on Spotify, except for a building. What we have to figure out, we have to make this stuff easier to use. 27 different verticals that general companies focus on. Financial services, they're helping to engage healthcare, to enable real estate like we were talking about. And on the back end, we're focusing a lot on data analytics. On analytics and being able to provide some insights about the education, but talking to partners about is fraud analysis. Be a lot of fraud of people trying to just take advantage. If people pass certain quality gates through the education that these companies are providing, they get access to crypto tokens that are delivered directly from these companies. Score the person, they get badges, they get rewards. On the EOS network, a block producer is a company that validates blocks. The EOS blockchain is another blockchain that's comparative to an Ethereum or a Bitcoin. Census as a company is really focused on Ethereum. Focuses on transaction speed, so exactly like you were talking before, they've really tried to crack the nut on little announcement. Herd was accepted into NYU Steinhardt's EdTech incubator. Partners such as Block Geeks and EOS Nation to work on delivering content to their communities. Why would I use a payment transfer instead of using Venmo? What makes it easier? What makes it better? What's the long term? On the EOS side, there's a wallet called Scatter. Ethereum side, there's an interesting wallet called Balance. The market kind of follows Bitcoin. It eventually will raise money, but the most important thing for us is focusing on working with customers and providing them with a platform that meets their needs. A customer can get an enterprise package, okay, where they have a white label solution. It'll depend on a lot of the integrations that we do on the back end for them.
Now, what kind of stuff do you integrate with?
So we can integrate to whatever messaging or service that they're using. So if it's a Slack or if it's a bit more of a Salesforce, Slack, it's all about watch their progression grow over time.
Welcome to Startup Hunter, also streaming on YouTube. I am here with Jason Tissera of Herds. It's a blockchain educational kind of marketing company.
All right, we help companies to educate their users and enable them to connect with their platforms.
Jason is the coder, the founder, and we're going to get into his history of entrepreneurship. So what I want to know is, what did your parents do and where were you born?
I was born in Colombo, Sri Lanka. I lived there till I was 7. My dad was an air traffic controller and my mom worked as a executive assistant at an airline. So we're an airline family. Primarily.
Now, when you moved here when you were 7 years old, how did your parents, were they still doing the same things when you came here?
For the most part, yes. And actually, we moved to Canada, not the US. So I grew up in good old Canada.
Where?
Just outside of Toronto.
So are you and Drake buddies?
I wouldn't say we're buddies, but we come from similar parts of town.
Well, I mean, let me see those glasses. You're like ready to go with Drake right now.
I do have some stunner shades, which I do wear sometimes.
Let's put them in the sun. There you go. Look at that. I think that's good. You can leave them on, I suppose. Toronto, 7 years old. Mm-hmm. What was the first entrepreneurial thing that you did? Were you?
I was walking dogs.
You were walking dogs.
Yeah.
At how old?
In my neighborhood, I was walking dogs. I think I was 11 years old. I started a little dog walking thing where I just went out to all the neighbors' houses let them know that I was available, and then I eventually got to just walk dogs.
So were you one of these dudes with like 20 dogs?
No, I think the largest I got up to was maybe 3 at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that business thrive, or was it just sort of a hobby?
I would say that it was thriving for an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, it was great. I had a little bit of pocket change. The neighbors really trusted me, so they gave me keys, and I just went and took care of their dogs. And more than anything, I think I provided a service. And people appreciated it.
How many dogs did you have on rotation?
I had about 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a great little thing.
I liked it. Yeah.
And what did you do with that pocket change?
I think I bought sneakers.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was the thing to do.
So what was the next entrepreneurial thing that you did?
After that, when I was in college, was really the next time that I was doing something outside of just like neighborhood things, you know, like washing cars or taking care of people's lawns or doing Canada snow shoveling. Shoveled a lot of driveways.
Yeah. So like, do you remember that Simpsons episode, Mr. Plow, with Homer?
I do actually. I mean, he made good money on that, didn't he?
Mr. Plow.
Was a part of a radio station in college, and
Where did you go to school?
Wilfrid Laurier University
Which is where?
in Waterloo, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah, Waterloo of BlackBerry fame.
You mean the BlackBerry device?
Yes. So I was part of a radio station, and I kind of turned that into a gig where I was a DJ. So I was spinning vinyls and DJing throughout Waterloo.
So what type of music?
Oh, I was a big hip hop head.
Yeah.
Still am. Massive hip hop head.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm telling. So you didn't run into Drake then?
I didn't. No. I played Drake then, but I definitely didn't run into him.
Aubrey?
Aubrey is
From what was the TV show he was on in Degrassi High?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so you're a DJ now. Were you making money doing that?
Yeah, it was great money.
Yeah. Did you spin that into like being like a nighttime DJ at clubs?
I had a Wednesday residency at a club called The Vault. They had Fishbowl Wednesdays, so it was sloppy. And I DJ'd on Saturdays, and I did like special events for campus clubs. I was pretty well known in that circle.
So why aren't you the next Diplo?
You know, it's funny you say that. Once I finished university, I just decided it's either a day job or a night job, and I chose to create a career in tech. So I just applied to some tech companies and then found one I really, really loved.
Which is?
I worked for SAP for about 5 years.
Oh. So you work for SAP now here in the city?
Yeah, here in the city as well as Pennsylvania. I worked out in Newtown Square. It's the U.S. headquarters. And I was a traveling consultant mostly, so I worked at over 32 companies installing their mobile technology. And I met a lot of great people, learned a lot of really cool things. I love that company. It's a great place.
Now, did you go global or just North America?
Yeah, no, I went global. I worked in London. I spent over a month in Brazil. I was in Venezuela, in Caracas, for a short amount of time too.
So were you DJing then?
Nope, no, not at all. I wasn't DJing then.
You put down your turntable.
I did. I
Your
still
ne-
have
your
them
needles.
at home.
So just in case you could fall back.
There's always a fallback, isn't there?
Were you doing any side hustles while you were working for SAP? Like, were you working on any ideas?
I was really just thinking about my career there and thinking about how I can grow within that company. I mean, they had amazing, just a lot of amazing services and amazing ways that a person who was young in that company could grow.
Uh-huh.
So I was really focused on that until actually one of my first mentors at SAP reached out to me and asked me to join his company here in New York. And that was a health tech company that he had just started. There was, I think I was the 7th person to join. And that's when I really decided, I want to take an opportunity and really jump into the more kind of startup entrepreneurial space a little bit. And I made the jump. But before that, I wasn't really doing anything on the side, no.
So how long were you at this health tech company?
I was at Cred Simple, which is a health tech company, for 2 years.
And what do they do?
They do medical credentialing.
Unpack that for me.
Sure. Yeah, it's really simple. In the U.S., when you have a new health system, actually when you have a new health network, so an insurer, when you have this insurer expanding or adding new doctors to their roster, these doctors need to be verified for all of their credentials, also make sure they don't have any sanctions against them. So this company that I was working for, what really excited me about them was that they created some interesting tech to make this verification process faster, smarter, and just more cost effective. So I was really excited by that.
So what were you doing over there?
I was managing business development. I was an account executive. So I was a part of this process of kind of hunting and gathering. We were a really small starting company, so we had to figure out what our niche was, and that was what I was really focused on, just trying to understand how to grow this company more and go out to the market and keep trying different pitches out to see what worked the best, and then eventually figure out that there was a certain niche that really fit our profile.
So let's talk about that, which is
Sure.
It's a very interesting topic, product market fit.
Right.
And it seems like you were instrumental in finding that at somebody else's company.
Right.
Talk about that. Like, talk about how you were talking with the CEO and how his vision, was shaping that, and how maybe you were shaping his vision.
Sure. I think it's a process of consistent feedback. The CEO, his name's Mike, and he's a great guy. He had some really good ideas about what the market needed, and it's always a thesis. We have a thesis that this product is going to do this thing for these customers, and my job was to take that thesis and go out and test it as the business development manager. So I just constantly went out there and talked to more prospective customers, and from there figured out exactly who that thesis worked for, and as well who we could actually implement it for. Because there's one thing to have a thesis, it's another thing to actually put it into practice. So that was a really important learning for us, to figure out exactly what we could bite off and what we could handle.
So get specific for me, give me some stories about, what you tried, what didn't work.
We knew early on that some of the best customers would be large insurance, would be payers, right? We knew that early on because we had a few already as clients. We didn't know if hospitals would be able to use our technology and would be able to benefit. So I went out there and I found some hospital deals, and we tried to implement that and tried to work through it. And we realized that some of those deals were more work than they were worth. So that's a really straightforward example of a situation.
So more work than they're worth, you felt like the hospital was going to give you an opportunity, but how much work did you estimate that it would take? I'm curious.
We estimated that it would take a lot less work than it eventually became. Yeah.
So okay. Did you actually go down some of these paths?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we met with, it's a hunter-gatherer process. So you went out there, you met some hospitals through your network of connections, and then they sign a contract and you start providing them with services, and then you decide somewhere down the line that this relationship's not beneficial to either parties. And there's several reasons why that could happen. For us, we just, our platform was much more suited for the needs of insurance companies. And so instead of taking some of the other technical steps we would have had to support the hospitals, we decided we're just going to focus directly on the people that we know we can support the best. And at least we knew we've done that.
So how did you start, how did it start becoming apparent that insurance companies were, where the sweet spot and where your niche was?
We were able to, in the process of credentialing, it's just, it's a volume business where you just take in a lot of doctors, a lot of their information, and you process it really quickly and smartly. We were able to do that work at a really large scale and at a really high quality for payers, whereas for health systems, it was a little bit more difficult, at least at that time. It was a lot more difficult. I'm not sure where the company is at now, but so yeah.
This is
so
what, only 2 years ago? A year ago?
Yeah, this is 2 years ago. I mean, things move fast, right? This is 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would only expect that they've improved on some of those services since.
How did your time at that health company come to an end? What was the reason that you moved on from that?
I was ready to take another step down this entrepreneurial path and join another company that was small, starting out, and was in an interesting space to me. And blockchain was just really becoming an industry at this time. So this is probably 2016 sometime. And I found I made a really great contact at an awesome company in Brooklyn called Block Apps, and I just made the decision to jump and try my hand at helping a new company to manage their education process, so education of developers for a blockchain platform. I just made the jump.
Now, Block Apps is not Herd?
It's not. No. It's the last company I worked for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how long were you there?
I was there for a little over a year, and then I consulted with them for several months after as well.
And talk about what they do.
They have a platform called Strato, which is an enterprise blockchain solution for private blockchains. Basically, this means that if you're a company and you have a bunch of partners and customers, you can set up a blockchain between that consortium of people and manage it and run it. So it's not a public blockchain like an Ethereum or an EOS. It's something very specific for a specific group of users. So you kind of know who's involved, you know what their stake is, etc. But you get the benefits of a blockchain, which is the ability to immutably update data and share that data across the board between the parties.
Okay, I'm lost.
Sure.
And so your current company is a blockchain educational company.
Yes.
So the fact that I'm lost,
Yeah.
the fact that you're in education, I mean, that's a problem. Maybe you're a solution.
Yeah.
But
so,
before we even get to Herd, I still want to talk about Block Apps. So give me an example of like one of their, business flows, like a specific company maybe.
we could talk about a bank, for example.
Okay.
Right. If you're a bank and you want to manage your payment process, let's say you want to do a POC where you're managing payments between yourself, one of your branches. Maybe you want to do a global between several different of your branches throughout the world, and you want to manage that process. That might be a good example for why you'd use a Strato type of platform, which is basically just private. It's within your community of users. Maybe it's a few of your partners that are involved. But the dog walkers. But that would be a great reason for using a private blockchain.
So Strato,
Yes.
was it a finance focused company?
No, it's a general technology company, a general technology platform.
So
Yeah. But finance is a great example of where you could use it.
what are some other spaces where you could use that?
You could use it in agriculture.
Okay, talk
So-
about that.
This is a great example. I actually had some experience working with one of Block Apps customers on the agriculture side. And there's the concept of seed to processor and managing from the seed creator to the process of farming a seed, making it produce, and then processing it and then distribution. You want to track that seed and make sure you understand exactly what it is, where it's coming from, who was a part of that whole process. So if you want to do that, you can use a blockchain system to do that. And that was a really cool project I was a part of for several months. Block Apps did a great job of it. So that's a very good example, again, of kind of a situation where you have a seed creator, and then you have farmers who aren't a part of that company. They're kind of separate. And then you have processors who are also separate. And you have all of these parties that they want to work collaboratively, but they're also incentivized to do things for their own benefit. And this is where blockchain tech is really useful, where you have different parties. They don't necessarily trust each other 100%. They want to make sure that the information that they're all inputting is 100% accurate, so they can use the system for that.
So here's a question. Before your Strato blockchain, you started approaching the seed industry, and there must be somebody else doing the business that you were doing, or were you coming in as a competitor, or were you completely creating like new ways of doing things?
In a lot of industries, I mean, even if you look at medical credentialing, right? If we take it back to that example, the competitor is typically the incumbent process of how they manage something. And that process for a lot of these cases are things like pen and paper management, signing off sheets and then tracking that, the completion of data via people's signatures.
Here's something, and I want to touch on this topic.
Yeah.
Whether blockchain existed or not, right? Let's say blockchain didn't exist today. Like, people would still be trying to do, watch out for the poop, people would still be trying to do take these paper processes and digitize that workflow.
100%, yeah.
So is blockchain even necessary, and make a case for it?
Oh, I think that it really comes down to the situation where you have different parties and having different trust levels between those parties. With blockchain, the benefit is the immutability of how data comes into a system. You can't change it, and a person can't really make it seem like it's beneficial to them by changing some data or misusing the way that they input information. It really is just one data set that's shared across the board. When you have systems like that, it's a really powerful process of record keeping. And that's simply where it just differs from doing it in a normal digital system that you could technically gather information and do the same thing with, but the immutability of that data and knowing that it's not edited or isn't changed by any one party, that's what's special about it.
So it's public data that's
Independently verified.
to a reasonable level of security, and the more people that are on this network, the more robust it becomes.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. Okay, enough with Strato and all that. So
Sure.
what was your reason for leaving Strato?
Well, I was in charge of helping with educating developers. And you educate developers enough, you start feeling like you can really take some of the work on yourself. You feel very technical. And I've been in the technical space now for just around 9 years. I decided, you know what, if I'm training developers on some of this tech, then I should spend a lot more time just doing it myself. And I devoted a lot of time to understanding how to build some of these solutions, how to build front-end applications, how to build databases on the back end, how to connect those to blockchains. And I wanted to create a system that I was able to showcase a lot of those different pieces. And that's why I started building Herd. And then I realized that there's a great market for some of the stuff we're doing with Herd, and slowly the evolution's happening now.
So how long did you taught yourself how to code?
Yeah.
When did that process begin?
Well, it wasn't a like a simple process where you would say like it began August and then I was proficient by November. I think it's been several years in the making. When I was at SAP, I was using several different technologies, HTML5, I was working with JavaScript and Objective-C when I was making iOS apps. But I wasn't like a dedicated developer. I was just a person who was very technical and had to do some of that work. Fast forward a few years, I really put myself through the rigor early on last year for about 3 months to make sure that I learned how to manage some of the newer tech when it comes to like React and Node and be able to do. Yeah. So I would say that it's kind of a long time coming, but on the newer tech, it took me about 3 months to really become fully proficient for a full stack.
Yeah. So you're Node full stack.
Yeah.
Was there like a specific moment where you just left Strato and you're like, you know, were you working on this prototype like while you're there and you're like, okay, I have something, it's time to quit? Or did you quit and then like, okay, I need to come up with something?
So what happened was that I left Block Apps. I left Block Apps to work on a project with a business partner in Toronto, my colleague Matt. So him and I worked on our own version of a blockchain company called Rawlings. And the purpose of Rawlings was basically to validate news and then pay validators for that validation.
So the whole real news, fake news
Absolutely.
space.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went well. Matt is still working on it. I still kind of advise and I'm a part of the team in some ways, but I've really focused full time on Herd.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what were you ideating on Herd while at the same time as that?
I wasn't. While I was at Block Apps, I was talking to Matt and we were thinking about doing this project. And I got to tell you, I was pretty scared. I mean, I remember the day that I quit and I talked to my manager. I wrote up this letter, you know, saying thank you and saying how grateful I was for the opportunity. And I remember shaking a little bit, being like, damn, am I really going to quit my job and start something myself?
Better stop buying all those sneakers.
But you know, I gotta credit both my wife and Matt at the time for saying, you know what, man, like we got this. We can do this together, and we're gonna make it happen. And yeah, so I quit, and it was after working on that project for several months that I started thinking about Herd, because some of the problems we were having at Rawlings, and the same problems I was having as Block Apps, was that it's just really hard to educate end users about how they can use some of this Web 3.0 blockchain technology. It's complicated, it's different, and there's really good competition out there already from just normal applications. So I wanted to come up with a way to make that education easier.
So, Bryce, how about we go to the shade?
Sure. So I was just feeling the need, and I wanted to find a way to fix it. So that's why after I finished several months of learning how to develop, I put some effort into coming up with a simple way to do that, and that was the inception of Herd.
So what was the first prototype of Herd? What did it do?
Oh, it was the first prototype showed you a bunch of different content and asked you questions about that content, and that was it. Yeah.
So what kind of content are we talking about?
We're talking about explainer videos and white papers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a typical stuff a blockchain company puts out there. How do we explain this? How do we get users to understand and to be a part of this community? That was the stuff I started with, because that was the stuff I had. I built all of that stuff for Rawlings, and I was trying to find ways to make it, to get it out there and get it past the typical barrier of just like in one ear, out the other. I wanted to make sure it was understood.
Yeah. So did that take off?
It's where we're at now. I'm finding a lot of really good interest from the enterprise level blockchain companies that are coming out and are putting up a lot of money to create payments platforms, that are putting up a lot of money to buy apartment buildings and then show people ways that they can buy into those apartment buildings with tokens. Things that are just, they're very nascent right now, and they need a lot of understanding from the user's perspective on how they can be involved. So those types of companies, these bigger companies that are really thinking about how to change the current systems, I'm getting a lot of interest from them, because they're also kind of at a loss for how they can get the general user to understand and be a part of this revolution that they're trying to create.
Now, is it just you working on Herd?
I have a small team. Yeah, I have a small team.
So talk about your team. Like,
sure.
How'd you find them? When did you find them? Why did you feel the need to make a team?
I've been very, very fortunate, and I'm really grateful for the team that has built up around me. Two of my colleagues that are a part of Herd came on with me from Rawlings. They worked on Rawlings with me, and one of my team members joined in. I met her here in New York, and actually, it's funny. I was at a pretty well-known React meetup group called React NYC. They do a lot of great content, another great community builder. And I was out there, and I was just sitting next to Tiffany, who's now my coworker and employee. And I just started talking to her about Herd and asking her what she does. And then we set up a coffee meeting shortly after. And a few weeks later, she was full on helping out, and she still is. So.
Now, you said employees, you're paying her.
Yes, yeah.
So, is Herd making money?
We're bootstrapped right now, so I'm investing my time and some of my capital to make it work.
Now, what does she do?
She's a front-end engineer.
So you have a front-end engineer. What do your other folks do?
Design, user experience. Yeah, so Leighton Smith is out of Toronto, and Mei Shang Chang is also out of Toronto. Mei does the UI work, so she takes some of the designs that Leighton creates and then turns them into the basic flow that we then implement on the front end.
Okay, so you have all of this tech happening,
yes.
And you were talking about tokens, you were talking about real estate, so talk about a little bit more about your business model.
Sure.
Sure. Let's talk about business model.
Business model is pretty simple. We are working with enterprise blockchain companies.
Give me some names.
So we're talking with BlockGeeks right now. They're already on our platform. EOS Nation is another block producer for the EOS blockchain that's on our platform. We're talking with some capital investment companies that are, like I said, involved in kind of financing some of these more interesting real estate blockchain projects.
So
So I can't release any of those names right now, but what I will say is that the type of work that these people are doing, they're creating ecosystems that are based on blockchain technology. They have users that they're trying to educate to be a part of that ecosystem. they want to get these users to use their wallet to actually make transactions with their tokens. And they want them to do more than just trade these tokens on exchanges. So that the value of the whole economy itself goes up, within their little bubble. So they come to us and they say, hey, we have this education need. We want to get our community off of Telegram and into a more structured place.
What's Telegram?
It's a messaging app where you'll have a lot of different conversations happening about a token or about a project. It's kind of like a Twitter, if you wish.
So Telegram is a blockchain specific?
No, it's not blockchain specific, but it's really been hugged by the blockchain community as a communication model that works. But WhatsApp is very similar. The only difference is Telegram is encrypted from end to end. Yeah. So that's why that community really kind of chose it as a key communication platform.
I have a pop quiz for you. Since I know I've been spending a lot of time in the blockchain, lots of meetups, I've been learning about it. I heard of this company called Blocked, which is I think it's by McDonald's and maybe even these guys right here. And they're a blockchain thing, but their whole thing is to get transactions, happening at a scale of speed that normal credit cards can work.
Sure.
And I think that's like a $200 million kind of thing.
Sure. Probably more.
But I know there's a lot about blockchain that I don't know.
Okay.
But the pop quiz that I want to give you, point on the street here and let's sort of play a game. I want you to say how blockchain is involved in anything on the street here. So I'm going to point right, and aside from the example I just gave you, you can't reuse. So Dunkin' Donuts, how is blockchain involved in Dunkin' Donuts?
Today.
If at all.
I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a reason to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what on the street here would have a reason to be in blockchain?
I think we're looking at a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
Real estate's very interesting. That is a space where you can manage the equity in some of these buildings, and you can share that equity across different users, people that are involved in a blockchain.
Yeah. Now, are we
tokenizing those shares, basically?
Yeah, I've heard that idea actually.
Yeah. And there's companies doing it.
We're talking condos that you can buy as an investment.
Full buildings, condos, co-ops, sure.
So full building, a condo, and a co-op. So break that down for me, one unit. Let's take a condo.
I think co-op's a perfect example. Co-op is great. Co-op is the same deal.
I live in a co-op.
There you go. So shout out to your co-op. Co-op is a situation where you have a bunch of people. They don't actually own the property itself. They own shares in this property.
Right.
And that's really all it is, except that we're able to tokenize that, and you're able to ensure that each person has that purchase, that they can see who has that purchase, and then they could do a lot of things on top of that. So once you know who's involved in the purchasing process and kind of where those wallets sit, you can do things like do distributions of wealth at a very granular scale. So let's say that building starts taking in rent. You can, it's like a Spotify management process for how they do distributions of money on Spotify, except for a building.
So you said that building starts taking in rent, so
yeah.
Some of the units are rented.
Right. And the distribution of that revenue will have to go out to all the shareholders, right?
Now,
so they can do it at a granular level.
A lot of these co-ops, they're 40 years old.
Yeah.
The back offices that run them, they're run by 60-year-olds. How are you going to sell those kinds of people who are, resistant to change?
Right. It's not for everyone.
Yeah,
it's definitely not for everyone. Actually, I would say for most people, it's not for them. But that's what we have to figure out. We have to make this stuff easier to use and simpler for anybody to become a part of it. See, my big worry is that with this technology, there's going to be winners and losers. And if we don't make it easier to understand and educate people about the benefits of being a part of systems like this, then there's going to be a lot of concentration of winners in people that are already wealthy, people that already have access. And I think that that's the goal of HERD, is to help with enabling people that aren't a part of that group to easily understand and become educated about some of these new topics.
So real estate's one of your focus areas. Do you have any other areas that you're focusing on?
Just general, so a lot of general blockchain systems that are trying to create, when you think of real estate, that's a vertical. There's 27 different verticals that general companies focus on. The just underlying tech, like if you're thinking about a SAP or a Oracle, they're not, they're underlying and they enable all of the verticals. So in the blockchain space, it's the same thing. There's some of these blockchain companies that are underlying the different verticals, and they're helping to engage financial services. They're helping to engage healthcare, to enable real estate, like we were talking about. So I'm focused on that layer, that thick layer, and finding ways to help with the adoption of some of those projects.
So what's all this code that you're writing going for? You have a dev team, like.
Yeah. There's primarily two of us really doing a lot of development work.
Like where do you feel the technology needs to go? What are you spending your time on?
So in terms of product features and platform features, I've really focused a lot on the front end to make sure that users come in and we can validate their interactions. We can help them make it a very seamless and simple process. And on the back end, we're focusing a lot on data analytics. So something I'm really passionate about is taking all this interaction data and making it easy for administrators to understand what happened on their system. So I spend a lot of my time on analytics and being able to provide some insights about the education and all the investment that people are putting into the system on the front end. And then another piece that I'm really focused on and that I spend a lot of time on, not only thinking about but talking to partners about, is fraud analysis. So the thing with making an education platform that's open, that people can just come into and learn about something, and where they could get rewarded with a crypto token or a pass to a software platform, is that there can be a lot of fraud of people trying to just take advantage.
So are you giving away tokens or passes?
We are, yeah. In some cases we are. If people pass certain quality gates through the education that these companies are providing, they get access to crypto tokens that are delivered directly from these companies. SaaS passes.
Oh, this is really interesting. So break this down for me. Like,
Sure.
Tell me how a user comes onto your system.
Sure.
And these quality gates and
Sure.
then because I want tokens, I want free passes. How do I get one? And tell me, I don't care how hard it is. I like a good challenge.
Good. Challenge is the important part, and being willing to learn is the other important thing. So what we're doing is we're partnering with blockchain companies that have content, and they want to put this content online. Then they want to ask questions about the content. Do you understand it? Is this right or wrong? Of these three different choices, which one did we talk about the most? Different things that are just validating that the person comprehends the content that they just were a part of and they took in. And then based on the scores of that information, we'll actually score the person. They get badges, they get rewards, and we do a distribution from the company directly to the user that is for example, crypto token, or a subscription to a SaaS product. And this is really important. Like, what we care about is adoption. So those crypto tokens or that SaaS product, that code, that can be used to take that user to the next level to become a full user of that platform.
Interesting. So it feels like a kind of gamified sales funnel kind of thing. That sounds totally different from your real estate focus.
The real estate companies want to educate their users about their solution. They want to give them access to their platform.
Oh, so you're working with existing blockchain-focused real estate companies? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You're helping drive adoption to that?
Yes, through a platform that makes it easy to learn, to enable these users once they become part of your group of users, and to serve them up with more content and give them the keys to that provide them with access.
So what are you doing to get the word out about Get Heard?
I work with several companies that are in our space that focus on getting information about these types of kind of learning engagements platforms out. So we have some marketing partners that we work with. We work with a few companies that are that have large communities and they're already working on education, and they put up content. They're kind of like third parties. They're block producers or they're education platforms.
What's a block producer?
On the EOS network, a block producer is a company that validates blocks, that checks if within a blockchain transaction's occurred and then validates it.
There's a economy sort of for
Oh,
and a need for these blocks to be now. EOS, what's EOS?
The EOS blockchain is another blockchain that's comparative to an Ethereum or a Bitcoin, and
So not the same as Ethereum, not the same as Bitcoin.
Precisely, yeah. They're another blockchain, and they have their own kind of benefits of what they believe is the important thing that a blockchain should have.
And which one is the consensus one? Ethereum?
They all have what Consensus as the company?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Consensus as a company is really focused on Ethereum.
Yeah, they're pushing for that.
Absolutely.
So who's behind EOS?
EOS is being built and managed by a company called Block One.
Yeah.
It's a really, really smart team over there, and they're trying to build a system on the EOS blockchain that focuses on transaction speed. So exactly like you were talking before, they've really tried to crack the nut on how we can make transactions in this decentralized manner as fast as possible.
Yep.
And they focus a lot on adoption of making applications that are easy for people to access and use.
Now another stupid question. EOS, Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Ethereum, are they linked in any way aside from being on the internet? Like are they linked at some code level, at some blockchain level, or are they just all totally separate blockchain entity ideas?
Yeah, they're all separate entities.
100%
100% separate.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for this educational session. I hope that was useful for you guys too, in understanding this sort of new space. Here's an interesting spin for you. So one thing that I have been observing over the last year, going to a lot of blockchain meetups, is there seems to be more blockchain activity outside the U.S. than inside the U.S.
Sure.
And some companies that I'm aware of are actually building, they're like, we know how the SEC works,
Sure.
right? Now here's a question for you. The tokens that you deal with, are they securitized? How do they fall within the SEC guidelines? Are these assets? What are they?
Yeah, it depends on the company's tokens and how they've managed to create them and what the utility of the tokens are. But in some cases, these companies that we work with can have securitized tokens that they're using. Yeah.
One of the companies I'm aware of, their entire point is to allow you to invest in blockchain in America, but like totally within the regulations.
Sure. Yeah.
So I hear all this complaining, really, about like, yeah, America's so regulated, but that just is how it is. There's no changing that for now.
Right.
So there's lots of these interesting startups that are, realizing that, hey, there's a lot of money out there that wants to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make it really simple for them to do that, in a legal way with
Mm-hmm.
minimum risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's at least one thing I have to contribute. It wasn't even a question. I was just putting information out there.
I think it's really interesting that the crypto meetups, specifically the ones that are talking about trading and that are talking about securities. I mean, I can't lie. I haven't been to one in a long time, but there was a time where the attendance for these, like the people were wrapped around a building, wrapped around a block trying to get in. And I don't think that's the same energy that's out there now. But instead what you have is you have a lot of companies that are really trying to build solutions that are actually marketable, that are going to create some kind of revenue. And those companies, their heads are down. Yeah. That's what I'm feeling right now, that there's a lot of people with heads down.
I think with the whole wrapping around the block, maybe that was the Bitcoin, frenzy.
Yeah, it's cryptocurrency frenzy for sure.
This is a real web kind of 3.0 thing. Yep. People that are interested in building companies and not so much interested in fast cash, that are totally valid, and that's where the real money is. if you're good enough to get it.
I think that's where the smart money is. Yes. Yeah.
Tell me what your plans are.
Our plans right now are to continue building with some of the great mentors and teams that we're working with. So, little announcement: Herd was accepted into NYU Steinhardt's EdTech Incubator last month, and that's given us a lot of great access to students, mentors, and professors that are focused on the education technology space. Yeah. And what we're doing with that is we're really trying to find what are the best what are the most effective ways to educate large groups of people on some of this very difficult technology, and how to do it in a fun and interactive manner. So we're trying to leverage those relationships to build out more interesting interactions on our platform. We're also working with some great partners such as Block Geeks and EOS Nation to work on delivering content to their communities. And you can actually go and check out their content on getheard.app. They're doing some awesome stuff, kind of teaching people about more general blockchain ideals and concepts. And other than that, we're really just focused on finding some enterprise partners to work with to build out the right type of tools to help engage their users so that they can increase adoption.
So let's talk enterprise. What are the most interesting enterprise blockchain things, whether they're big enterprise companies acquiring blockchain companies or big enterprise companies doing their own blockchain projects? What are some of the interesting things?
I think we've talked a little bit about some of the verticals like real estate. We've talked a little bit about financial services. I think it's a lot of these companies that are already doing this work. We just want to help them to get the word out about what they're doing and actually understand if people are getting it or not, if people are ready to take a next step and use their solution versus use a typical internet solution. You know, why would I use a payment transfer instead of using Venmo? What makes it easier? What makes it better? What's the long-term vision?
You need a Venmo of blockchain, you know? And is there
Absolutely.
one?
It's just Bitcoin. You could just send Bitcoin to each other if you want.
Yeah, but you need like Coinbase, like.
There's several ways to do it. There's several ways.
You know, you need a consumer-facing startup to make it just super appealing, and just create a lot of buzz. And what do you think is the Venmo of blockchain?
Like I said, I think Bitcoin is the Venmo of blockchain.
Yeah, but Bitcoin is a protocol, right?
It's a protocol, but it's a currency. It's something that has value that you can easily transfer from person to person, and
but give me a company like a wallet company or.
When I think about wallet companies, I think about two companies that are interesting right now. So on the EOS side, there's a wallet called Scatter, and they have a really easy to use interface. I was recently using it to do some distributions of EOS for Herd, and I think Scatter was great. On the Ethereum side, there's an interesting wallet called Balance, which has a great interface as well, simple to use. So those are two simple ones that you can download easily and get going. Status also has a really interesting, again on the Ethereum side, has a really interesting platform. They have multiple different levels. Not only is it like a communication app, but it's also a wallet. So that's very cool.
Here's a question. Are Starbucks or Uber accepting Bitcoin?
That's a great question. Last time I checked, I don't believe so.
What do you think they're waiting for?
I think they're waiting for some more validation. I think it's difficult to say that I'm going to take a currency in when you don't know what the volatility of that is going to be.
Right. So
you don't want to open those floodgates up.
It's really it's volatile. Now, do you know offhand like how fast the Bitcoin or just I guess let's focus on Bitcoin.
12 minutes.
12 minutes?
Yeah.
What?
Transaction verification is about 12 minutes.
And is Ethereum growing faster than Bitcoin or EOS?
I don't think that at this point in time any of them are growing any faster than the other. I think the market kind of follows Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So if Bitcoin tanks, the market tanks. If Bitcoin goes up, the whole market goes up. There's a big delta. There's a big differential in terms of dominance. Bitcoin over the rest of the market combined. Yeah. So I'm not sure if any of them are growing faster than the other.
Do you intend to raise money?
I think that eventually we'll raise money, but the most important thing for us is focusing on working with customers and providing them with a platform that meets their needs. So we're focused primarily on that. It's more of a revenue business right now.
Are you charging to date?
Yes, we are.
Oh, so
the packages and how we do pricing depends on the customer and what their demands are.
Okay, so can you give me a specific example of like what a customer can get? unheard?
So a customer can get an enterprise package.
Okay.
Where they have a white labeled solution, and that's kind of sitting within their environment, and their users are going to it, and it's not part of the more general public facing education platform that we've built. Can run them a certain number, and it'll depend on a lot of the integrations that we do on the back end for them.
And what kind of stuff do you integrate with?
So we can integrate to whatever messaging or service that they're using. So if it's a Slack, or if it's a bit more of an enterprise service, we can do that.
Oh, so you're really getting your tentacles into these organizations, like, and you're providing a lot of technical expertise to like really get these platforms on blockchain. If you're doing Slack integrations, that's pretty in depth.
Yeah, Salesforce, Slack, it's all about making it easy for these companies, for these people that are doing this work today, to continue doing it to be better than if they were to just do it themselves and manage this across several different tools. We think of ourselves as really a single place where you can engage with your user base and help adoption, provide content to them, and watch their progression grow over time. That's it from an education perspective. And in order to do that, you could do that today with several different tools, different places you'll have all that information, or you could come to us and we'll make it specific for you and we'll make it work better. And so that the person who's focused on doing that work can focus on actually educating and actually engaging their users and actually moving the adoption needle rather than just managing data.
All right. I think that's a great place to leave it. Herd is a really interesting thesis you have, an actual company with employees and customers, and that's really in the early stages of figuring out the market. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Hunter. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Cheers, everyone.